Yeah, you're listening to Ready Eden, and our music is stuck. I'm not quite sure what's happening here. I think it's coming back on again. Anyway, we're going to try to see whether we can get hold of... This is live, so this is where you've got all the problems. And it's always a bit of a challenge as well, but nevertheless, if you are still with us, welcome here to Ready Eden, and thanks for sticking with us. Okay, Trey Smith. I'm gonna see whether I can get hold of him. Let's have a look. He doesn't know that he's gonna be live on air, but should be interesting. Hey Trey, are you there?
I'm okay. I'm here. Hold on a second. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm okay. You're live on air at the moment. Just to warn you.
I'm on the air?
Yes, yeah. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Right, Trey. Right, let me just try to get the audio right. Trey, meaning of life. That's what we've been talking about. I just said my friend Roy from Uganda. He's sleeping now, otherwise we could have a conference call. Tell me, what is meaning of life? What do people think in America what the meaning of life is? Now, Trey's from Houston, Texas. GodInANutshell.com. So that's his website if you want to check him out.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it is, Michael. The meaning of life is about Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And that's not just to me. That's and that's a journey for anybody that's listening to this radio show right now. That's a journey that I would ask you. Your life is valuable to the degree that I would ask you to investigate that very question. There's a reason why every single thing on the planet Earth will fight you knowing about that name. And it is my strongest opinion that there is no name on this earth that carries the power of that name. And the purpose of this life is that you were born even above angels.
Mm-hmm.
You were born above things that your physical eyes can't even see. You were born to be a king in both this life and the next.
Mm-hmm.
You were born to be free in every possible sense of the word. And a lot of cost has come with you being able to have that. And the most incredible journey that you'll ever find is by pursuing that specific answer. You could never deem yourself more worthy. It is the privilege of kings to seek out a matter. So to find yourself worthy, to hunt out the purpose, not of the life of the guy next to you, or the guy down the street, or what the world says, or what's being pumped in through your medias or through the television screen, but your life. You came into this life on your own, and you're going to leave it on your own. And in my strongest opinion, you are living a test. And it's a very simple test, but it's a test of where your heart is. And that's what I believe the meaning of life is.
Why is there so much resistance? Why do people find that there's a massive resistance for people not to know about the name of Jesus?
Because the occult is real, and because the things that we've made into mythology in this current age are 100% real. When you're talking about demons, or you're talking about things that are otherworldly, even when you're talking about aliens or UFOs and these other kind of things, what you're going to find in our past is extensive writing about these things, all the way back to the very inception of our earliest little scribbles on rocks are going to tell you about the summonsing of demons. You're going to find this in every single empire, save not one, that has existed on the face of the planet Earth. leading all the way to present day. When you hear people talk, the government is run by Luciferians, or this is run by Lucifer. See, we use these terms lightly and we toss these around here and there, but I don't think many of us have. Or you'll hear the term, they, even though you may not believe in demons, they do. Well, what does that mean? Even though you don't, they do. Why do they? Why do they? And the reason why they do is not because they're out there spinning their wheels, or they're shucking jiving, or they're little joking about it, or they're they were just looking for something to do with their time, and so they figured that they would do occult rituals. No, the reason why they do it is because historically, through every age of time, it's produced results. Now, those results are most certainly not the results that any of them from any empire ever wanted. Some of the most horrifying soap opera stories in history are those of kings and queens and rulers of earth and their entanglements with the little bitty entities that they call up from their other world, their Sheol, their hell, their underworld, whatever name they may give to it. But the diminished dimension from which they do their little practices to summons their little otherworldly gods. I believe it was John Dee, the head intelligence officer under Queen Elizabeth, who stated, and I quote, if one were to peer into their world through portal of spirit, you could easily perceive it as nothing less than a madness of monsters, insects crawling over each other for but a single breath. Be not deceived. These things are highly sophisticated, acting out their fantasies through the minds of men. It is by this mechanism they are already in control of empires.
I think the important thing to say is there's an enemy, and there's an enemy of God, and the battle place is here on earth, and the object of the battle is your soul. If you sort of try to reach out to Jesus, you will find resistance, and you will find that something is trying to stop you to go there. But I think, Trey, you'll agree with me. What I want to encourage you is just to press on, press through, and really reach out to Jesus. Deception is all over, and deception goes so far that the biggest thing what they try to keep you from is from really reaching out to Jesus Christ and to letting him into your life and accepting him as your Lord and Savior. But I think it's important, you need to reach out to him. You need to make a full thing with Christ to really let him into your life. It's most important thing I think you can do, and I think this sums up the meaning of life.
Well, first of all, with Jesus Christ, let's go through just a couple of practical things here.
Okay,
real quick.
Go ahead.
You're dealing if we're talking about a name that comes from 2,000 years ago, and this is the most controversial name on the face of the planet Earth today. From 2,000 years ago. So that's already an opening red flag. Now, I hear there's ample amounts of different things about Jesus Christ that you'll find out there online. Many people will argue that Jesus didn't even exist. That's an interesting argument. Let's go down that path for just a moment, because I commonly see this from groups that are in the New Age as well as groups that are atheists. They'll argue this. Do you know how much that people like Nero would have loved to have said that? Do you know how much that any Caesar living in any of those time periods, any of those first century time periods, because you've got more than 150 different writings. 4 of these are from the historians of that time. And you say to yourself, oh, only 4 of these are, and that's not the canonical Gospels I'm talking about, by the way.
I think I just lost him there. Trey, are you there? Are you there? Okay, I've lost him. So let me just try and reconnect. Hey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here with you, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, okay. We lost you there for a moment, but we succeeded in getting you back, so that's great. Trey, the next talk, and we've got about half an hour, is about dissolution of society. Yeah, and it's going to be. I think it's a fascinating sort of subject to talk about and to sort of see what's been happening sort of over the last 10, 20 years in society. It would be great to sort of get your opinion as well. One thing which struck me, I recently heard a documentary on radio in England, and it talked about the use of antidepressants. And one of the things which they mentioned is that the use has gone up by about 20% over the last 2-3 years, and they're not quite sure why. And then they came up with all these ideas. The doctors prescribe more of this stuff, and that they're less inclined to look for other solutions and so on. And I thought that probably it's not the reason. I think the reason is really that people are more depressed as time goes on, and especially with the crisis and everything else. A couple of other things which really kind of struck me, and it would be interesting sort of to hear your opinion about this, is, for example, divorce rates are really, really high. They are now over 50% in virtually all Western countries. Had a look at them, and I think interestingly, some Catholic countries like Portugal, the statistic goes up to about 70%. I think it's 69% of all marriages in Portugal end up in divorce.
Uh-huh.
And what else? Suicide rates are quite high, very, very high indeed. In my own personal realm, I'd never heard anybody I knew committing suicide until the last year, where I heard of 2 people taking their lives. And one of the things sort of I kind of think that society has sort of reached breaking point. It goes further. Leaders, which I believe, politicians, business leaders, they don't seem to accept responsibility, but they are seemingly seem to follow a different agenda, which is not necessarily for the benefit of the people, but for the benefit of something else. The next, just one last point, and then I'll let you carry on with this talk a little bit, see what you think. Is prison population. It's quite interesting as well. It's at an all-time high here in Europe, in England. What about America, Trey?
Well, First of all, the pharmaceutical company. Well, we live in a materialistic age, and people judge their need of feeling good by the things that they have, and the need and desire of feeling good is not rooted in the raising of their family. It's not rooted. There used to be this old idea that's slipping through our fingertips, particularly here in the United States during the 1950s and the 60s, the 70s, that's sort of slipping away. This idea that if you worked hard, if you did a clean job and you worked hard, that you were going to get ahead. There was at least the illusion of that. Well, the point that we're at today, that has shifted to the more that you can cut the other guy's throat, the more that you can outlie the other guy, the more that you can take the other person. It's not a mindset of giving to the other person. It's a mindset of what can you take, what can you out-connive. And all of these things are going to play into a society that's obviously very depressed. It's even depressing for the guy that's doing the taking, because he's never going to be satisfied. If the whole world bowed down to you, you outtook everybody, and there you are, and you're standing, and the whole world now bows down to you. What an empty place that would be. So the root things in the mindset have changed from just enjoying to be with your family, enjoying a nice dinner when you get to have one, enjoying simple basic things, has shifted to this need that if you don't have a better car than your neighbor, if you don't have a better this, a better that, and in the end, it's obviously it's not going to end well. And this also plays a role in what you see in the politics, not just here in the United States, but also there in Europe, where the spending is, it's numbers that are sobering, where numbers like $1 trillion are common day-to-day dialogue in people's conversation. Can you even imagine during the 1950s or the 1960s? People talking about $1 trillion that they're spending. This isn't just quantitatively different, it's qualitatively different. If I were to tell you that I wanted to borrow some money from you today, but I told you that I would pay you back in 1 million seconds. If I told you I'd pay you back in a million minutes, in 1 million minutes I would pay you back. You would do the math on that. And you would come up, well, that's only about 12 days. Okay. Now, if we were to take that to 1 billion, right, then that would be 36,000. That would be 36 years. If we were to take that to 1 trillion, that would be 36,000 years.
So it's pretty crazy what's going on there. The national debt. What do you think is happening? Why are people sort of in this position to feeling this hopelessness? I see this all over. I've seen this in Western Europe. I get the impression there's a little bit like that going on in America as well, that the people are just there isn't the sense of the future is going to be rosy, let's look for tomorrow, but people have got this anticipation that things are not quite going to be so good tomorrow.
Well, they're right about that, but there's two ways that you can come at that thought. Number one is that inside of yourself, if you are spiritually in tuned inside of yourself, and you're taking joy in the little things in this life, and you're understanding that this life is just a smaller microcosm of something a lot larger in scale, then you can have calamity falling on your left and your right, which, by the way, is not where we're at today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird thing. There's a crisis, and a lot of people are quite badly affected by the crisis, but it's not like the Second World War, where your houses were bombed to bits and you didn't have a home to go to, or you didn't know whether you were going to be alive tomorrow. But it's not quite as severe as that. But you get the feeling when you talk to people that there's some sort of deep gloom people seem to have these days, and which probably is reflected in those figures about suicide rates, about antidepressants, about people just feeling totally disengaged, high divorce rates. People don't care about other people anymore. They just care about themselves. They forget about, friendships. They've become quite. That's the impression I get when I look around, that friendships are not as strong as possibly 10 years ago, 15 years ago. The loyalty is gone. Yeah,
they're focused on what they don't have as opposed to what they do have. We are right now today. We're in what has been historically the best time period that has ever existed in mankind.
I mean, we've had, in the West at least, we've had a long time of peace, a few glitches here and there, but I think it's about 50 or 60 years, which for Europe, for Western Europe, is unknown. I don't think there was any period in history where you've had almost 2 generations living in peace without having to face a direct war action. Saying that, I mean, you've had Yugoslavia. In America, I mean, you've only had your civil war, didn't you? All the other wars were fought outside. The Canadians don't attack you, and the Mexicans are pretty peaceful as well these days. But
that is, that is true. But I'll tell what there is here in the United States is this: is the people are continuously being pitched fear. Fear, 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 fear. Be afraid of this. Be afraid of that. And that even comes through in the commercials that are fed to you through the through the television screen. I mean, if you don't buy the right Oxy cream, then you're going to have zits on your face, and the girl's not going to talk to you. If you don't have the Colgate mouthwash, then your breath's going to smell, and people are definitely not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right car, then those are just little examples, but those examples have begun to get so large in scale that it's all fear based. These people over here are secretly doing this against you. These people over here are secretly doing this against you. And I'll tell you this: this is what I believe, is that fear often comes couched as wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead.
And it's not. No matter what the situation outside is, even if the situation outside is catastrophic, if you are spiritually sound inside yourself, then all of that matters less. And really, this time period that we're in right now should be one that we take an ultimate amount of joy in and treasure, because they're right when they say it might not last. They're right when they say that there could be days coming where the things that we feel like we don't have now, we have less things than we have right now. So to treasure what we do have as opposed to what we don't have are, some of the differences that you're seeing there. And sedating the nation is not the solution to that.
It's true. I think this is one of the things which has been happening, where people are told a story which is not quite reality. I mean, in Western Europe, I've seen that wealth in real terms has been shrinking over the last 5 years. Prices have gone up, wages have gone down, and taxes have gone up as well. Quite considerable. And average people, just over here we've got the term Joe Blogs. The average person is noticing that they've got a lot less than what they had about 5 years ago in revenue and income. And sort of times are changing. It's a bit like I very often have to think about the story in the Bible where Joseph talks about the fat cows and the lean cows, and it feels like we have suddenly entered a period of the lean cows where everybody's got a little bit less to try and cope with. Why is this feeling of despair? Because we've had times in the past where people were a lot less wealthy, but they seem to be a lot more happier.
Well, that generally, the cycle of nations works like this. Every nation goes through phases, and the longest portion of those phases, people are under dictatorship. So people go from time periods of dictatorship, and eventually the dictatorship will become so oppressive. When that occurs, when there's this precipice where the people are so oppressed that living and dying, look equally as appealing, where dying perhaps starts looking more appealing than living. It's at that point that you see an overthrow of dictatorship. Okay, so then you move into your next phase, which is a phase of struggle and building, right? Because the people have just conquered whatever the evil was, whoever the dictator was. And this happens to some of these dictatorships last thousands of years. People don't pay attention to history, but history has a way of coming around and biting you, particularly when you don't pay attention to it. The next phase is struggle, where you're struggling to rebuild something. You're struggling, you're working, everybody is just fiercely, single-mindedly after the single goal of we're gonna build something out of these scraps, and they're going to accomplish that, right? And that struggle is going to lead to prosper. So those people are then, they're going to, okay, we've struggled. Now we can sit back and relax a little bit. Okay? So the next phase of that, generally the next generation or 2 generations, are going to be complacent. Right? They're going to begin bickering. Who's got what? Who's got too much? Hey, that guy's got more than me. Hey, that didn't come out fair. So all of the little bickering and the little dissensions and divisions and things, we don't all agree with each other, start to arise from the mix. The morality levels always drop. That's another critical factor. We've got prosper. What are we going to do with the prosper? We're going to go be immoral about it. Immoral is synonymous. Even the word sin is basically just a statement of the way things are not supposed to be. It's always in some term a violation of somebody else. So now you've entered this sort of immoral, sort of loosey-goosey fun state, right? Where everybody's sort of out to get the other guy, okay? And that will eventually manifest into collapse. Collapse of whatever they built. From that collapse, you'll generally have the rise of some new person that's going to appear on the scene and say, I'm going to fix everybody's problems. That'll be your dictator, who's going to, and that dictatorship time period will last the longest, because it will take the people the longest time to get out from under the thumb of whoever the dictator is.
Okay, Trey, can I just stop you there? For our listeners, you may not... depends how long you've just been listening here to Radio Eden. Just before Trey, we were talking to Roy, Pastor Roy Lal from Uganda, and he was talking about the same thing Trey was just talking about. And they had the same situation where, Trey, you made an interesting point. You said that sometimes life is so hard that people don't know whether death is more preferable than life. Yeah.
Yes.
And basically one of the things which was happening in Uganda was exactly that, in the civil war area, that people got murdered, killed. They couldn't sleep in their houses, they had to sleep in the bush, and very often, probably for many of them, life was not worth living. And the same thing, they got rid of the guy. They got high level of moral, a little bit of prosperity was coming in, and they're facing the same situation where they're on the back of the cycle. And after they've turned to God, this rebel who is making people's lives a misery, he's moved away, and he's now somewhere in Congo, in a different country, and people get complacent, and that's within a period of about 10 years, from 20 years where this rebel was in control and making people's lives a misery by just killing them right, left, and center, and then about 10 years afterwards where things have started turning around and people fall into this trap of being complacent and forget about the bad times. It's an interesting point. So this is cyclic. So what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next to our societies, to America and to Western Europe, or possibly Eastern Europe too?
Well, it depends on what we do. I mean, in theory, you can turn it around.
How? How can we turn it around?
Well, you have to come without even going from a spiritual sense, just from going from a physical sense. You have to do the obvious things. You can't spend more money than you have. Right? You have to love your neighbor, as opposed to trying to figure out how to take from them. Business owners would have to view the business they're running as that they're actually performing a functional service to help facilitate other people's livelihoods and their families, and that this is not a position to leech and funnel off of them and see what little pennies we can shake out of their pockets, and how little we can give them and how much we can take for ourselves, but how much we can make them flourish. And sort of the purpose of the business is not just a product for other people to buy, a quality product for other people to buy, but also is the very livelihood, the ability the respect and joy that comes in the ability to have something flourish that is feeding other people's lives. See, none of those mindsets are there. It's not the actions, it's the mindsets. But you can have the same identical actions come with different results based on the mindsets behind them. And that's what you're seeing. And so what I'm telling you is that the mindset would have to change. Now, coincidentally, all of the mindsets that I just described to you are biblical mindsets. So this is what I'm telling you. Even if it was someone listening that doesn't even believe in the Bible or anything at all, when I'm telling you it's the result of a spiritual condition, this is a spiritual condition that you visually see the effect of on society itself. So that's option one.
Just to sort of get your point, when you look at companies, one example, there was a company here in the UK, and it was in private hands. They were producing satellite receivers, electronic goods, and they were doing quite well. And so the stage came, a venture capitalist came along. He offered the private owner a big chunk of money. The owner said, "Oh, that's nice, thank you very much," and walked away from the company. And then the venture capitalist, his only purpose was to try and increase production of the company to an insane level to then be able to sell it at a profit. Yeah, and life for the workers became a misery. They were all starting to burn out, and it's like the thing, if you pressurize production to the top point, it's a bit like your car. If you drive it at full revs, it'll drive and it'll go really fast, it'll be very powerful, but it won't last very long. Eventually the car's just going to burn out and it'll destroy itself. It's the same with these companies as well. So the problem which is there is that the focus has gone. The focus, instead of, if I'm a business leader, I can have two different types of focus. One of them is, I'm here to serve the people, to create wealth for a lot of people, for myself as well, but also for the people around me, to create products, something good, which is beneficial for society. Or I can have the other viewpoint, which is, I'm just here to make money as much as I can, and I don't care about anybody. If people go unemployed or I destroy them in the process, I don't care. Money is the object. And this is what was happening with this venture capitalist. He was taking a really good company where people love to work and they love to get up in the morning to do their job, and he was turning it into some sort of slave labor camp where people were just burning out and despairing. So, and it's interesting as well, because the Bible has got this concept: if you are a leader, you are a servant, and you should always see yourself as serving people as you lead them, and not to control them for the sake of controlling them, or to impose your power schemes on them, because you get high, you get off on being in power and being in control. Trey.
Well, that and that makes the guy in charge miserable too.
True. And it doesn't make you happy, does it? It's enslaving you as well as everybody else, I guess.
It may be enslaving you worse. See, their delusion is less than that guy's delusion. They're under oppression, and that guy's delusion is worse. He's under an intense state of, and you're going to find this with your political people as well. I mean, it doesn't just apply to companies. It applies to the highest up tops of our country do not view themselves as trying to benefit the people of the country, but using the people of the country as some kind of mechanism to their own ends and their own means. Mm-hmm. And historically, that's always been the case. That's always been the case. And it's the aversion to the place itself. Everything here is designed to ebb and flow. All of it is, from the cells to the stars to the very fabric, the quantum particles making up the whole place. All feed back and forth each other as one big helpful unity. And when people, what happens in a body is when one part of the body decides to suction and leach right off of the others, this develops into a cancer or a tumor. This doesn't develop into a good thing, into a healthy thing. It develops, as you said, you've revved the car, and now it seems like, oh, cool, we're going real fast for a minute, while not paying attention to the wall that you're about to hit. Yeah. And that applies for the dictator as much as it does for the person on the ground. And I would argue this from my perspective, that the dictator is in more trouble than the person on the ground, because the dictator has a higher level of responsibility, and he's going to pay for that in this life and the next.
Yeah, there's a principle of sowing and reaping as well. I mean, Jesus made it very clear that you reap what you sow. So if you abandon godly principles, you will suffer the consequences as well. And the godly principle is, the first one I would say is love. Whatever you do it out of love. You do it out of love for the people, the organization, love for God, and ultimately even the love for yourself. I think that's the first principle. And the second principle is, you do it right. You are righteous in your dealings, and you are good in your dealings, and you are not bad. You are not doing it for greed, for the desire to control, the desire to to destroy, which very often is the case. But big problem is it? Why is it so much worse than what it used to be? I remember my father's generation, and there was a sense of integrity. There was a sense of responsibility as well. Responsibility for the person next to me. And I get the impression it's all gone. It doesn't exist anymore. If somebody is in trouble on the side of the road, people don't care, do they? This is, I think, what I find more and more and more. Why?
Well, they're also scared. They're also scared of that person on the side of the road. There's, they're terrified of the person on the side of the road.
But why?
So it's well, in some sense, there's good cause for that. On the other sense of it, it's because we're all living in a state of fear, because that's the climate. That's been the climate in the Western world, which is not a new climate for places like the pastor who was in Uganda, where the fear is real. And often I found another thing, that the fear of something is actually worse than whatever the something was itself. Okay, so and this plays a role in the mindset of the mind is a tricky thing. That the belief of how you perceive the world, how you see the world around you, really affects that world, and also plays a role in creating that world.
Interesting point. So the fear factor, destroying lives because it takes control of you.
Even if there were a collapse. And a collapse could actually be a healthy thing. I mean, and let's be honest here. I mean, what the ultimate question was a little bit ago is there a way for it to turn around, or what will the outcome be? And the outcome will most likely eventually be a crash, and in a financial sense in the Western world. And there are two different ways that can go down. One is it can just slowly hyperinflate, where what people make and the cost of things, where they just simply, can afford very, very little. And they're sort of like boiling a frog into poverty, except sort of on a fast pace. That's one way. The other way that it can happen, which is the one that I venture more to guess will occur, because I don't think the politicians have as much control of this as people give them credit for, that it can organically fall apart right from underneath your feet. The financial systems can just collapse. And there are ample examples of this historically, where it just falls. It just falls overnight. In either case, the way that you pull out of it is the same way that it's always been. You've got two decisions at that point. Number one, the next thing that's going to be presented to you is, hey, we've got some peachy little tickler fixes for you, and if you go for that, it's going to have whatever conditions it comes with, and those are always dictatorship conditions. Option B, if you go the other direction, and the people themselves decide, we don't care that our system has crashed, right? We're going to rebuild. We're going to take on a different mindset inside. and we're going to value what we had enough to rebuild it. So these two different mindsets would lead to two different types of outcomes. My guess, as unfortunate as it is to admit, my guess is that the people will do what they've redundantly and historically done, is make the poor decision for the small immediate trinket in exchange for everything. And that, my friend, goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden itself.
Why? How? Tell me more about the Garden of Eden and how this goes back.
Well, that's exactly what the serpent had to offer, wasn't it? You're going to be, in fact, that's what the guy in charge of the big company or the guy in charge of the political, his view is that he wants to be like a little bitty god. And that's what the snake had to offer. You can become as gods. See, that's why he wants to control the people as opposed to playing a role in benefiting the people and doing everything he can. The thing that would bring him the most joy is the furthest thing from his heart to do. The thing that isolates him and puts him in his own metaphoric cage, if you will, from the rest of society, is to suction off of the people, because now he's got to be nervous about them because he's taking from them. He's being he's suctioning off of them, and he's over here and he's buying fancy cars and stuff, which he really can't afford to drive, except with his other little couple of friends who don't respect him. They're looking for ways to cut his throat and cut his business apart, so they're really not impressed. The people he's stealing from are definitely not impressed by his fancy car. So all his fancy car has done, or his whatever it is, yacht or whatever, has consolidated the fact he can sit in that car or sit on that yacht or sit in that mansion and know that people hate him. If he had done it the other way, and if it was done with flourish and it was done with integrity, and he had earned through, and the people really respected him, then he could drive his nice car down the street and say, you know, we worked for 10 years and I bought myself a Ferrari. We built a company that's incredible, and these people here, every family in this company, they've all got health plans. They've all got. These people are really taken care of under the success of this company, and I treated myself a little bit for that. Look at what I got here. And people would have respect for that. But all the way back to the garden, we make the decision for the little bitty trinket because we've got this idea that we can cut a corner on all of it. It all got provided to us for free anyway from the beginning, right? That's the Genesis story. We didn't earn it. We were just given it. But here's a tree you can't have. And here's a snake, and we all know that you should listen to a snake, right? Because snakes tell the truth, right? You're going to become as gods if you just take a bite of this. You could have everything else, or you could give it all up to take a bite of this. That thought train has not changed.
It's an interesting aspect to draw the comparison. Okay, we've got a few minutes, and I need to close, and then we have to go back to our normal programming here. What's the answer to all this? I mean, society is sort of breaking down. That's what I think. This is what everyone sees, and people are kind of losing the plot. Nobody really knows how to do this, and they come up with all these crazy ideas to bring it back on track. They've got this. I mean, I find politics in England is all about money. It's just about money. You know, this is about. Anything is justified if it creates jobs and somebody can get rich out of it. That's okay. I think they've lost the plot in a way, because politics should be more. It should be about leading people, trying to stabilize society, make sure that everyone is okay, that the lowest guy is looked after as well as the top guy is protected, and that everybody takes a share in society. And it's completely haywire, I think. So what's the answer? I mean, I would say, one of the things is there's always a personal level. You need to, in a way, sort yourself out. And the only way to do this is through Christ. To make a difference in society, and then obviously hope, pray for the guys in power.
That's what I would, that's identical to what I would tell you as well, Michael. And here's why. Because The empires of earth come and they go. Rulers die, and their ideals die with them. And the question at the end of the day, you no matter who you are listening to this show, you came into this world on your own, and you're going to leave it on your own. And the question really, for me, in my strongest opinion, is not what the other guy does, or how he acted, or how they acted, or what they did, because that's just going to cause so much stress that you're going to have blood veins popping from the top of your head, because the truth is that you really don't have control of those people. That's the truth. And the more that you try to control them, the more that blood vessel on the top of your head is going to bulge. But what you can do is determine how you respond. I am telling you the God's honest truth when I say that this place only lasts for a fraction of a second in comparison to eternity. You are here for a minute, and the decisions that you're making here are not based on the other guy, but they're based on you. And you are heir to an empire. That's what every ancient text that I look at says. Every page of the Bible is stating that. And you're being judged on just a little bitty thing, just a little bitty life that you're walking through, right? And it doesn't seem like, I mean, in the grand scale of things, you could say, wow, there's all these things happening. Of what value am I? You are valued above the angels in heaven. That's how valued you are. And your Lord God, the creator of this place, when he sees you making decisions in private, particularly in private, or in public, that are of his will, that are loving towards your neighbors, how you respond is honest in your dealings. That he, the creator of this place, is proud of you and looking down on that. And I'm telling you, the wash of the muddle of all the little scratchy voices throughout history that yell for this and scream for that, and all of their violence and their need for control, they're like dogs chasing cars. They wouldn't know what to do if they caught one. But amidst that, you are like a diamond. And that's what the creator of this place is looking for. So just be that diamond, put a smile on your face. You don't need your government to give you free drugs to sedate you from how bad the world that they're making is. Don't worry about any of that. The place was free, and you were born to be free. You were born to walk out of this life in victory, no matter how it ends. And you're stepping from this life into glory. I'm not saying that as an opinion. That is a fact. One's so easy for you to have that it's not even funny. And anybody that tells you any different than that is lying to you, or so desperately deceive themselves that they don't know their head from their rear end, and they're not worth a minute of your time. That's my opinion.
Trey, I think it's important to point out, if you forget about God and you don't want to know about God, you don't want to know about Jesus Christ, what's the result? You just think, okay, this is my life, I just want to go for it. I just do what I want. I'm going to get as rich as I can, and I'm just going to, enjoy. I'm Ferrari guy, and I'm a party guy. I don't want to care about God. What's the result?
Well, it doesn't. You're going to get what you're going to get. Just like the apple in the garden, you get the apple.
What about eternity?
At the expense, well, you better be hoping. In that scenario, what your hope has got to be is that everything that I just said is not true. And I would ask you to value yourself enough to go on the journey and seek out these answers. And you're going to find a jillion different voices. But here's what I found, is that the right answer will present itself with a very minimal amount of looking. And it'll present itself in exactly the way that you need to, but you've got to initiate the questions and the desire And this is like a bicycle on a hill. If you stop pedaling, then you start going backwards. So that's where it is, and this is a journey, and it's worthy of your experience. This place is a cool place. No matter what's going on here, it's a cool place, and it's like that by design. And all of the evil stuff going on around you and all this stuff, that's serving a role as well. So don't let it, you can get angry at it, but don't let it consume your entire being, because it'll do that. That's what it wants to do. It wants to consume you. It wants you caught up in its game. Be above its game.
It's true.
No matter what it does, be above its game.
Okay, I'm gonna close. I mean, I think it's the most important thing is just reach out to Jesus. As you seek Jesus Christ, you can find him. And as you open your heart to God, you will find that Jesus will come into your heart, and you can have a new start, a new beginning with Jesus. And as Trey said, it's an eternal decision. Your choice is you spend eternity without God, which is going to be horrible, painful. You're not going to cease to exist, but you will carry on existing, or you spend life with God, with Jesus Christ. Okay, we'll carry on with a little bit more music. I just see I've lost the call with Trey. I can just see on the screen here the line was dropped. So, are you back, Trey? No, the line is dropped. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit more music, and then we will switch over to our normal programming in about a minute's time. I want to just encourage you to just go for it. Go for it. Open your heart and reach out to Jesus Christ. Let him into your heart. Just let him know, like, Jesus, if you are real, I want to experience you. I want you to come into my life. I believe that you did everything to reconcile me to God, and I want you to come into my life. You can write to us at www.radioeden.com. We've also got a YouTube channel where you can sort of get a lot of talks, which is www.radioeden.tv. And if you can, we've got a resources page as well. We've got a Bible you can download for your Kindle. If you've never read the Bible, I would encourage you to read the Gospel of John, which is the fourth book in the New Testament, and just go through it and check it out, read it, and it should be a fantastic read, especially if you want to learn about who Jesus really is and what he has done, and you want to get more information about him. Okay, God bless, and get in touch with us. If not, it's okay as well. But don't forget about Jesus. Just reach out to him, invite him into your heart, and make a whole thing with Jesus. Okay, God bless and bye-bye. I'm gonna turn on to music, and then in a few minutes we'll be switching over to our normal media for our normal programming.